Welcome to episode 76. Today I'm joined by Lucy Westlake. She's a mountaineer and a track and cross country runner. She's the youngest American woman to climb Mount Everest, the youngest girl to summit all the highest points in the contiguous United States, the youngest female to climb all 50 of the US state peaks. Her other major ascents include, I'm going to butcher this first one, Acon, Acon,
Oh, Aconcagua.
there you go. Aconcagua, Elbrus, and Kilimanjaro, the highest peaks in South America, Europe, Africa, and also member of the USC track and cross country team. So a lot going on and lots to talk about. But yeah, thanks for hopping on the podcast.
Of course, I'm excited to talk with you, and I hope people get a lot out of it and enjoy the time that they spend here.
It's definitely unique, like mountain climbing and not just like, oh, I climbed some small mountain that nobody's ever heard of, but like actual Mount Everest, Kilimanjaro. I mean, these are mountains that everyone's heard of, whether they're big into geography and like they know a lot about a lot of mountains around the world. They're just kind of ones that everybody knows about. So it's definitely exciting. I knew I was gonna butcher the name on that one. It's just
You're
I
good.
could
It's a difficult one.
yeah, definitely. So how did you get into mountain climbing? Like how old were you and like what got you into it?
Well, I started climbing by discovering high pointing, which is basically kind of like what you mentioned at first, where I'm the youngest woman to climb all 50 state high points. So I started out where me and my family kind of stumbled upon our first high point, and we were living in Louisville, Kentucky at the time. So we were on a mission trip, and just there happened to be the highest point in Kentucky right down the road. So we hopped over to that one, thought it was really cool that we were, on the top of the state. It was a really pretty view, and we just decided to start doing a few more. And it wasn't the goal at first to do all 50, but it just we're a big road trip, outdoorsy family, so it just fit into our lifestyle really well. And we started doing a few, and then before we knew it, in a few years, uh, me and my dad had done 20, 30, and we decided to do all 50.
That's crazy. So you kind of just decided, hey, like basically let's go for a hike one day and it kind of turned into everything that you've done to this point.
Yeah, looking back, it's kind of crazy just how like the dots connected. And it was just kind of like, one mountain here, one mountain there. And then suddenly I realized I was like, wow, I actually like know a lot about mountaineering and, and really love it, love the sport. And I just, continue doing it. And it's brought me, to some pretty incredible places.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of traveling all over the world, which we can talk about a little bit later on. But so what goes into like preparation for climbing? I'm sure it's different depending on the size of the mountain that you're trying to climb. But like, what do you have to do? How long is the preparation? I mean, do you like start prepping months in advance, or is it kind of like we're gonna go on a climb in 2 weeks? Let's get ready.
It definitely varies, like you said, mountain to mountain, and then also I think just like person to person, like how much experience and expertise one person has. So for a lot of the mountains, I mean, there's mountains where you have to rock climb on. There's mountains you have to ice climb on. There's mountains that you're going to be on a glacier with crevasses and things like that, and you have to you're going to be on it for months, so you have to really get good gear and know how to like cook your own food, set up tents, all of those things. So it's just like very different, like depending on what mountain you're doing. And then some people come into it with a background of rock climbing or a background of ice climbing or just like a background of like I guess I came into it just like hiking. Like I started just like hiking different state high points, and then I eventually learned how to use an ice axe, how to use crampons, how to do all these things. And that just kind of like the knowledge just built up, like mountain to mountain. Like I started small, and then the mountains kept getting bigger. I kept learning more. So like when I went to Everest, I already like knew a lot about I didn't really or about glacier mountaineering, which is what Everest is, just like a big glacier mountain. And I already had the skills, like technical skills I needed to climb it. So I didn't really, have to prep in that sense, where I had to like learn new techniques and things like that. But definitely just like physically, um, prepping for it is a big deal as well. And since I was living in Illinois at the time, in the Chicago suburbs, so I wasn't like I didn't have any mountains to go climb on the weekends, to like prep for it or really train. But I am a runner, so I've always used just like my running training just correlates really well to mountaineering, because it's like that long aerobic sports where you need a lot of endurance, and being like specifically a distance runner has helped a lot in that. So, and then just like the weight training, like we do some weight training with running, so like that has also correlated really well to mountaineering. So I actually like going up to Everest and some of these other mountains so far at least, I've been able to get by just like with my running and that type of training, and then just like the technical knowledge and mountaineering skills I've built up with other mountains. But that being said, there are a lot of mountains out there where you need to, have that those rock climbing skills, ice climbing skills, things like that. So right now, actually, I'm really getting into rock climbing, and I hope someday to like be able to have the resources to get into ice climbing as well, so that I can like go to those other mountains that require that.
So you mentioned like picking up different, more technical skills as you did different climbs. Are those things that you kind of like self-taught yourself, or were you with guides and they showed you, to just Google on YouTube, how do I do this? And you practiced, or?
I learned it all through guides. Yeah. So at first, every mountain's kind of different, like whether you need a guide or not. And it's like kind of a lot of them are like gray area, like maybe you need a guide or not. And I'd say, especially when like first getting into mountaineering, definitely err on the side of getting a guide. Because it is a very dangerous sport. And if you go into it not having the right knowledge, you can get yourself in, you can die very easily or just get yourself into a lot of trouble, and your climbing partners. So I'd say definitely at first, like start out. It is more expensive to get guides and just a hassle sometimes. But it's definitely worth it to get a good foundational knowledge. Like mountaineering is not like, learning physics or something like that. Like it's not something you can just like YouTube or Google. It's like you really need to like have very credible sources that are like hands-on teaching you these things. So Mount Rainier is actually where I learned like got my first introduction. That was when I was 11. I went there. I got my first introduction into like how to use crampons, ice axes, like how to self arrest, how to like do all these skills like set up tents, things like that. And that's like the first mountain I went guided on. So they taught me everything like that. And then I was able to do some other mountains that were similar to Rainier without guides because I like got that knowledge. And I was also with my dad because I was so young at that point as well. So you kind of build that knowledge, and then you're able to like practice it on other mountains. And then when I went to Denali, went guided on Denali because it's just more of a technical mountain, a big expedition. So I'd say guiding is definitely like where I've picked up most of my skills from my guides. And now there's mountains that I do feel comfortable on without like that I would need a guide on before, but that now I don't need a guide on. So yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like other sports where you can just pick it up like that and go out there on your own and you figure it out in a few weeks. It's definitely worth the money. I mean, there's a lot of sports where they'll tell you like, yeah, if you take lessons, it'll help you, but you don't need them. Mountain climbing,
Mm-hmm.
with how dangerous it can be, it's definitely better to spend the money and go that extra, take those extra steps.
Yeah, safety first for sure. And that's
Right.
a big part of that. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. In case anybody's going to get into mountain climbing, take the safe way. Don't take any shortcuts. It's not worth it. In
Yeah,
the end, you
true.
wouldn't be happy if you tried to take a shortcut and then, like you said, you got in a pinch. You see it on the news all the time. People have to get
Hmm.
rescued or whatever it is, and you don't want to be that person.
Yeah, that is even more expensive too. Getting
Right,
rescued is
exactly. You try to
a
take
lot.
a shortcut and it backfires and it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
So what was the first like I don't know if like large, because they're all large, obviously, but maybe for first like more serious climb you did. What was that one?
Uh, Denali was definitely the first really, really just very challenging mountain I did. Like one of the hardest in the world. And that was just on a different level than any mountain I had done before. And that's in the 50 state high point. So that was my last state high point that I went to when I was 13. So before that, I had done all the other state high points, and there's some very difficult mountains. Like I said, like Mount Rainier, there's like Gannett Mountains, all of the Pacific Northwest mountains are very difficult. They do have some very difficult mountains in there, but like Denali was just like a whole different level. So I went to Denali when I was 13, and yeah, it was just I like had no idea what I was getting myself into, to be honest. It's around a 3 week expedition, and it's like completely on glacier. You fly, take a glacier plane right onto the mountain, and from there on, you're like completely responsible for like all your food. You carry in and out all your garbage, even like the human waste. You're carrying that in and out. It's just a very long, grueling expedition. And then at the top, it does get pretty technical with some technical skills needed for going up like fixed lines and things like that. So yeah, that was the difficult one. I actually ended up not summiting my first time because we were at high camp one day away from summiting, and my our guides had to go on a rescue mission because someone not in our group, but someone that was around us in a different group got stuck higher on the mountain. And then after that, our guides were really tired that night because all night they had gone up and tried to rescue this person, and then a big storm came in, so we had to leave without getting to try for the summit. But I went back a few years later, like when I was 17, and was able to make the summit then. So Denali's, yeah, I know that mountain pretty well now, climbing up it 2 times, and it's a beast. It's a hard one.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It definitely does. A lot that goes into it. It's not your everyday, let's go for a hike. I mean, like you said, 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
That's you got to be really devoted to wanting to do it to actually succeed and enjoy it.
Yeah.
So Mount Everest, I mean, obviously, like Mount Everest, I feel like you could walk up to anybody on the street, and if you said, "Hey, I climbed Mount Everest," no matter what their background is or like their education, they'd be like, "Wow, that's amazing!" Because it's just some of these other mountains you've climbed, people would probably be like, "Oh, I've never heard of that." But Mount Everest is just,
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows what Mount Everest is. So talk a little bit about like the planning going into Mount Everest and actually climbing it and accomplishing that feat.
Yeah, what brought me to Everest actually was a goal that I still have to complete this thing called the Explorers Grand Slam, which is basically climbing the 7 summits, so the tallest mountain in every continent, and then also skiing to the North and South Poles. So I've done, I after Denali, I had completed my 50 state high point goal, and I wanted to continue mountaineering and going, pushing myself, like pushing my limits and doing some really cool things. So I was kind of brainstorming what else I could do, and that's what I kind of like decided was my next goal. And so I actually, in between my first and second try attempt of Denali, I went to Kilimanjaro. I went to Mount Elbrus, the tallest mountain in Europe, Aconcagua. Um, let's see, yeah, those things. And I also did the tallest mountain in Mexico, which was really cool because I have family down there. It was a really good experience. But after Denali, then I was like, okay, well, I guess Everest is next because the tallest mountain in Oceania is closed. It's still closed actually because of tribal warfare. There's like a civil war going on over there, so waiting for that to open up, hopefully. But that wasn't an option. And then the North and South Poles are just very expensive expeditions, which Everest is too, but those are even like a whole other level, like $100,000 type of expeditions. So I was like, okay, well, I need to get sponsors for those. And I got a sponsor for Everest like a few months before it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna take advantage. I'm like, I gotta say yes to this opportunity. Um, so I said yes, and it was my senior year of high school. But luckily, I already planned to graduate early, so I was able to go to Everest in because the climbing season's like April, May for Everest. So I was able to go there in April and then and summit in May. And yeah, it was an amazing expedition. And definitely a lot of planning went into it for sure. But I did hire a guide company. You actually have to climb with a Sherpa in these Himalayan mountains. So I got a really good guide company who I still climb with. I love them. And they set up a lot of the logistical stuff because I just like I've never been to the Himalayas. Like I don't know much about, the process over there of climbing. So they're like, okay, like we'll get you all the permits, like do all these things. So luckily, like a lot of the things I didn't have to do personally. And I also already had almost all of the gear I needed just because of past expeditions. So I didn't need much gear at all, which can be a big barrier for entry, like when people get started in mountaineering, because the gear is very expensive and it's kind of something you do need. So luckily, like I just kind of like in small bits, kind of like acquired them all. So luckily, I kind of have all of that already. So that was really nice. And then yeah, I flew over there. It was my first time in Asia, which is awesome, and I just had the best experience. I loved it, that mountain.
How long did that one take?
I was on the mountain for 27 days. But that's actually like a very fast expedition. It's usually like if you just like look it up, it says it takes around 40 to 60 days to climb. So I mean, it's hard to like gauge how long the expedition is going to take because it just depends on so many factors. Like, weather is a huge factor. Sometimes you're snowed in, like on Denali, we were snowed in our tent for a week. So you could be like snowed in, just unable to go up the mountain. There could be like, avalanches and things like that, like logistical problems. That your body could just like be feeling really bad and you have to take more rest days than you expected, or, like go down to a lower altitude and then go back up. So, so it's really hard to gauge like how long an expedition is going to take. But with Everest, the stars just like all aligned. It was like great. Like my body felt great. I was feeling really strong. The weather was amazing when we were summiting. It was all just a really smooth expedition, which I've had a few that have not been that smooth. So I like very much appreciate it, not even now more than I did then. Like looking back, because I know what it can be like if when expeditions don't go smoothly. So yeah, that 27 days includes like 8 days pretty much of like trekking up to base camp, just like hiking. And then at base camp, you rest for a bit, and then you go up on what's called like your first rotation, which is basically you go up the mountain a few camps. There's 4 camps before the summit that you stay at. So you go up to like camp 2 or camp 3, and then go back down to base camp, and that allows your body to acclimatize and basically like get used to the altitude, which is really important because if you just try to go straight up, it'd be very, very difficult to do that. So you go up, down, and then if you feel good, then the next time you go to the summit, or if you're not feeling very good, you go up and down again. It just kind of depends, but usually people just do like one rotation up and then to the summit, one or two. So I was able to just do like one, come back down, and then go to the summit.
Oh, I never realized like how much went into mountain climbing, or that you go up and then down, and maybe for some people they have to go more than once before they get it. And I suppose that's a huge factor into the time. If you have to go up and down more than once, it's going to obviously add a lot more time. What's been your
Yeah.
favorite climb out of all the ones you've done?
Oh, it's so difficult to choose one. I One of my favorites in the US was probably Granite, which is the tallest mountain in Montana, I believe. And that mountain was really fun because for me because it had some rock climbing in it, and I love rock climbing. So that was like my definitely like my favorite in the US. And then internationally, I honestly think it was Everest. and that's like kind of for a lot of reasons. The trek was actually my favorite part. Like the trek up to Everest Base Camp, those 8 days are just absolutely beautiful. And you go through so many different climates. Like you start in almost like a forest, and you're like walking next to this beautiful river, and you're like crossing these like bridges across these rivers, and it's just like yeah, it's beautiful. And then like you get to that kind of alpine climate and you can just see all these like amazing huge mountains all around you because I mean the Himalayas are like the biggest, have the tallest mountains of any mountain range. So you're looking around and you're seeing like the tallest mountains in the world. So it's just like an incredible, incredible sight. And then you get to base camp and Everest is really good infrastructure put in place because there's so many people who want to do it. So unlike a mountain like Denali where you're really on your own and it's pretty like you're kind of rough in it. Like Everest, when you get to base camp, it's like kind of like a bougie mountain. Like it has like a nice big tent. It has like people cooking for you. We even had like a cafe tent where people could go and just hang out and get coffee and like baked like people would bake bread and things like that. And people would like play guitars and it was really fun. They make it where you'd want to stay you could stay there for a few weeks and not get totally bored. And then just kind of like I said, how the expedition just like aligned really well and went smoothly and fast. It was just kind of perfect. So that was probably my favorite like international climb I've done.
Do you have any climbs upcoming anytime soon that you're planning, or not yet?
Yeah, so this summer I am actually going to be guiding for the first time ever. And I kind of discovered this new passion of mine guiding last summer when I co-led a expedition of all women, and it was actually a girl that was 14 years old, 17 years old, and 18 years old that I was able to fundraise a scholarship for, and go with this really cool company that it basically like their goal is to get more women in the mountains just because it's a very like male dominated sport. So that's like kind of their mission. So I partnered with them and was able to like go on this expedition and help like guide for the first time. And I really love like teaching people about like what it takes to climb mountains and just having them have like a good first experience where they want to go back and do more. So I decided like this upcoming summer that I want to try out guiding and see if it's something that I would want to do in the future. So I'm going to be guiding on Mount Baker this summer with a company called Alpine Ascent. So I'm really excited for that. So that's like, well, I'll be there the whole summer. So I don't have any big expeditions planned. Like most of the, like last summer, I was literally on a mountain, all of June, all of July. Oh yeah, all of June and all of July. So it's nothing like too big, but I'm hoping to be able to go up to Canada. I want to start trying to do the 13 Canadian high points, which basically is the highest mountain in every province of Canada. So there's only been 5 people to ever do that and no women. So if I was successful, I'd be the first. So I want to start doing a few of those and hopefully get some sponsors to be able to do the bigger ones there, maybe next summer, something like that.
Yeah, that would definitely be cool to add to your climbing resume, add it to the list. And do you know, has there
Yeah.
ever been anyone, even a guy, that's done all of Canada, all of the United States, and then like all of the high points in each continent? Has that been done by anyone?
I doubt it. I mean, there's a lot of mountains, and I guess it kind of depends like how you divide each continent. Like the
Yeah,
U.S., you kind of like divide it by state. And then I guess you could divide it by province in Canada, and then I guess in South America you could do it by country. But like since it's all kind of like different divisions, I'm not sure if even like someone's done all the high points in South America, like every country. So that would be a cool thing to look up though. I should get on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I suppose you're right. Like it'd be how you defined how many high points there are in each, just to
Mhm.
determine if it's possible or if somebody's done it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, but I honestly I doubt it because there's only been 5 people ever to do the Canadian high points. So like the chances of that person also having done other, high points is I feel like it's slim. So
Right.
yeah.
Well, hey, there you go. you could give it a shot. Try and
a good
just
goal.
devote your life to climbing, I don't know.
Yeah,
Or guiding, like you said, that could be a new passion of yours, which
yeah.
would be kind of cool. It'd be kind of funny or crazy to look back and to think it all started with you just kind of going on a hike with your parents, and then all of a sudden, now you're finding new passions through climbing, which was a new passion, and now you're leading, and it's just kind of crazy if you look back on life and how it all started.
It's true. You don't realize what's happening in the moment, but then when you look back, like those little coincidences sometimes make a big difference in your life.
Yeah, definitely. So let's just touch on track a little bit and mention that you're at USC track and cross country. So what was your recruiting like? Was it smooth? Was it bumpy? Stressful? I mean, everyone's kind of got a different experience with how the recruiting goes.
Mhm. Yeah, I feel like it's always a little stressful for sure. It was definitely like I don't know, it's always kind of like there's a lot of pressure of like, "Oh, when do you recruit?" and like all these things, like, "By this date, you gotta know." And here at USC, like, the coach was, like, very, like, chill about it. Like, he was like, I don't wanna rush it, like, I want you to, like, take all your time." And I was like, "No, like, I wanna sign here, like, I know this is where I wanna go." And, so I was kind of, like, pushing that, and he was like, "We have, like, a spot for you, like, it's like, we want you here, but, like, you should, like, like weigh all your options." And he really wanted me to like think about everything, which was like really kind of him. Like looking back, I think a lot of athletes get pressured into signing by a coach, so it was really kind of cool of him to be like, you should like look at all your options. um and I didn't have a ton of schools on my list just because I was looking for a very high academic school, just because that's something that's like really important to me. So just like the schools that lined up with like athletics and academics what I wanted were like not that many. And I also was I wanted to get out of the Midwest as well. I was like I was lived in Louisville, Kentucky for like my childhood, but I lived in Chicago for since like sixth grade up through when I went to college. And it's just so hard long distance running in the winters up there. Like it's you get out and like running in like the at 0 degrees, like however cold it is, like it's hard. And I am not like a treadmill girl. I do not like running on treadmills, and I feel like I get injured very easily. So that's something that isn't really great for me. So I was always just like bundled up trying to do my runs outside, and it was really challenging for me in high school. So I was like, okay, I want to go somewhere that just has a little bit milder winters, and preferably like warm. So that's how I ended up here at USC, which is definitely, yeah, has that aspect. And but the other schools I was looking at most closely were Princeton and Duke, and yeah, I just it kind of came down to like coaches, because all of those are like amazing academic schools, have a lot to offer. But like coaching wise, I just really liked Coach Harris, which is my coach here, more than the other coaches at those schools. So that's why I came here.
That is definitely kind of unique, especially at a large Division 1 school. The coach kind of telling you, "Hey, weigh all your options, like make the best decision for you." A lot of coaches, they're only concerned with bringing in the best recruiting class and not necessarily how it affects an athlete. Some coaches, they don't really care as long as they bring in the recruiting class. We'll use you if we need you, but once you're here, you're ours, kind of a like mentality. And then the athlete kind of can get in a pinch. So it's definitely, I feel like, rare in the modern Division 1, like the way athletics are and how it's turned into such a business, that a coach
Mhm.
cares more about like a student making the right decision than actually getting that student on their roster.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely Coach Harris is definitely very good in that aspect. Like I appreciate it a lot because he does really care about like his athletes as people, not just athletes. And of course, like there is that business side, and all schools, have that where it's like, I'm not allowed to like leave for spring break because, we're training and things like that, where it's like, yeah, I wish I did have like a little bit more freedom, but that's D1 sports in general, especially at a really high performing like track specifically. Like USC is very, very top tier at track. In cross country, we're not as good, and there's a little bit more leeway and freedom in the fall. But like in the springtime, it's like, yeah, you don't have very much freedom. Um, but Coach Harris is like really good at trying to like really see that his athletes as human beings, not just like times or things like that.
Right, definitely. And that's very important, obviously. I mean, it should be all about the athlete. It definitely isn't. And I get the business side of it. I understand it, but it should be more about the athletes, because without the athletes there would be no business. So, they
Yeah,
definitely should take
exactly.
care of their athletes.
Mhm.
Um,
I feel like that's happened a little bit more with like NIL and things like that, just
right.
like more payment for athletes and things like that and appreciation. But yeah, it's moved slowly for sure.
Very slowly. So you ran in a few cross country meets and you did very well in those, but you had an injury that kind of kept you out of track. What was the injury?
Yeah, so I actually haven't run competitively, like competed since my freshman year cross country season, and I'm a sophomore now. So it's been like 3 seasons, which has been really hard for me. I yeah, like you said, I had a really good freshman like cross country season when I first came in, and then I got a stress reaction in my tibia. And that took me out. I kind of like ran through the injury a bit and to compete in Pac-12s, and then after Pac-12s, I could not walk, so I was like out for a few months. But then I came back from that like right before track season and was hoping to be able to compete. But then I got tendonitis in my Achilles, which took me out for around another month. And then I came back from that, and then my stress reaction started flaring up again. So I was ended up being out all of track, and then was able to like finally start running again pretty much right when track ended, which was like May. Um, and then I all summer I was off on like a mountain climbing, and then came back, and I actually decided to take the semester off because I was going to be in a reality TV show called Race to Survive. But unfortunately, at the last moment, we were like the last team to get cut. So unfortunately, I didn't get to do that, and I had already taken the semester off. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just like go. I actually ended up going to Ecuador and learning a ton from some guides there about just mountaineering and rock climbing and improving those skills. So it ended up being a really great semester off, but wasn't able to do cross country. But I was like training really well, and I came back to USC strong and like ready to compete in track season and in some of the best shape I've ever been. So I was really excited. But then I like 2 weeks after coming back, I got a stress reaction in my femur. So right now I'm also not running again because I have a stress reaction in my femur. Um, and I'm probably not going to be competing the rest of track season just because uh, I doubt I'll be able to come back before the end because it's kind of getting towards the end right now. But I did sign up for a half Ironman because I've been swimming and biking so much as cross training. I decided might as well sign up for that. So I'm gonna do that in May. So I'm really excited for that to just compete again because I'm definitely like a very competitive person and like driven off of competition. So train like I just don't find purpose in training without a competition in mind. So I was like, okay, I need to sign up for something that gives me like a purpose and will keep me, training, wanting to go to training.
Yeah, and it's kind of like with other sports, eventually it gets kind of boring if you're just practicing against your teammates in basketball or whatever. Like if you're just running by yourself, you're not running against somebody. Eventually, it's kind of like you said, you kind of lose purpose in that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to motivate yourself to continue. Especially if you are a
Yeah,
competitive person, and it's been a long, long time. It makes it even harder.
exactly.
So we'll just touch on a few other things here to end the episode, and one of them is Eagle Harbor. You were born in Eagle Harbor, so you are a Youper. You're more Youper than like the people who come to tech. They're like, "Oh, are we Youpers yet?" Like, well, technically, you'll never be a true Youper because you weren't born here. You were born and you
True.
left, but that still makes you a Youper because you were born there. So you've got that up on all the people, no matter how long. Um, do you go back to Eagle Harbor often?
Yeah, we go back for every summer. We usually try to go 2 times in the summer. I used to spend like my entire childhood summers for like, 2 months or so in the summer up in Eagle Harbor. We have like a little cabin up there. But since, I think it was around going into high school when, summers kind of get taken up by preparing for cross country season. Like my coach expected me to be running with the team all summer. So that kind of was hard. I wasn't able to spend all my summers in Eagle Harbor, but we still go up every 4th of July for around 10 days. And then also every August, because there's this thing called pig roast. That's like the best time of the year. It's like this town-wide dance party basically, and we roast a big pig. It's really fun. So I we go up for around like 10 days as well in August. And then also, well, when I lived in Chicago, we were able to go up like sometimes for Thanksgivings or like long weekends, things like that, because it was like a 7.5 hour drive away. But now since I'm in California, I just go those 2 times, and then also for Christmas, we spend every Christmas up there as well. So it's definitely like a place that's very close to my heart. And if I had to call anywhere home, it would definitely be Eagle Harbor, just because we moved around a lot as a kid. So I lived in Alabama from like year 1 to 2 of my life, and then Louisville, Kentucky, from like first to 6th grade, or from when I was like a little baby till like 6th grade, and then like my high school years after that in Chicago. So I'm like, I don't really know if I should call like Louisville or Chicago my home. And now I'm like California, and my family moved to Nashville, Tennessee. So I don't even like go back to Louisville or Chicago. So I'm like, I don't really know where else to call my home. So I'm like, I'm from Eagle Harbor. That just like makes sense because it's been the only place that I've consistently gone to throughout my life.
Yeah.
So I love
Eh,
it.
Yeah, the UP is a it's a special place definitely. And especially if you like outdoor activities, there's plenty of stuff to do year round, no matter what it is. There's something to keep you busy, and I mean, they're not the same type of hiking that you're used to, but there's plenty of hiking around. It's just a little
Mhm.
different, user friendly, maybe the word. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's true. But no, that's where I discovered my love of like the outdoors and all those things. There's so much to do up there. It's such an underrated part of the country. But I'm kind of glad because it keeps it like kind of small and like under wraps.
yeah, yeah, I'm from Houghton, and if you go anywhere, people are like, "Oh, I'm from Houghton," and they always say Houghton Lake. I'm like, "No, not Houghton Lake, just Houghton, just by itself,
Yeah,
completely different place." But like you said, that's good. I mean, there's certain maps that don't even include the UP. They just have Lower Michigan, and
yeah.
there's probably people across the country who don't even know we exist.
I guarantee it. Some people are really bad at geography.
Yeah, there definitely are. So what are some of your other hobbies? Obviously climbing and running, but like what are your hobbies that you like to do if you're not climbing or running?
Yeah, well, I guess most recently I've gotten really into rock climbing, which kind of goes under climbing, so I feel like that's cheating. But it's something I've never really done in the past. Like I started this fall, and I've become like completely obsessed with it. So, been outdoor climbing and indoor climbing a lot. I also love to read. When I go on long expeditions and things like that, I go through like 6 or 7 books. So I bring my Kindle because the books are just too heavy to like carry up that whole way. But I love reading. And I love art in general. So I'm always like sketching things when I'm in the mountains or just whenever I have time here at home. So yeah, art's definitely a big part of my life. Music has been. I love listening to music, and when I was like little, I grew up playing piano. But I'm considering starting to play guitar because I have a friend who who offered to teach me. So I love, but right now, I just like I'm a big music fan. I'm always listening to something. So yeah, I'd say those are my main hobbies.
What's your go-to for music?
Mm, I love like kind of like a chill rock. That's like my favorite genre. So kind of like Young the Giant, The Strokes, bands like that.
Yeah, definitely. Is that like kind of just like that? Like you're honed in on only that, you only like that, or do you like
Oh,
depends on your mood, you might stray off to something else and you're listening to whatever depending on time of year or the vibe you're feeling?
yeah, no, I listen to so many genres. That's I think like my favorite, but I listen to like country, I listen to hip hop. I like really I've been really listening to more like slow music recently. I'm trying to think of a good like example of that, but maybe like TV Girl. I really like TV Girl. Yeah, it's just kind of like very chill, slow music. And then I also love like my workout playlists that are just like intense, like Eminem type of music. So yeah, big. I'm definitely, and I also really like classic rock as well. So I definitely have a big kind of, I don't know, liking of music.
Yeah, well, that's the way to do it. I mean, there's some people who all they like is country or all they like is rap, and I mean that's fine. You
Mhm.
like what you like, but definitely having variety, I think, is better. And then it's easier to like talk to people about music or like listen to music with somebody else. Because if you're like, I only
Mhm.
like country, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of people who don't like country at all. Or if you only like rock, I mean, there's plenty of people that can't stand rock. So if you have a wide music taste, it can really help you connect with whoever if you meet somebody new or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Music is such a big connector these days for our generation. So it is nice to like a lot of genres. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you big into movies or like TV or anything?
I go through phases. So when I'm like in school, I try not to be because I do kind of have like an addictive personality. So I'm like, oh, if I get into a TV show, like it's gonna be bad. Like I need to prioritize my school and athletics, and like hang out with people, not just like be on TV. But like I do really love movies and TV for sure. And I feel like movies are more like doable. Like if you have like a few hours and you just like watch one movie and then it's done, like I like doing that. Like I just watched the new Dune, and I read all the books of Dune some summer, and then they started coming out with the movies, and I was such a big fan of the books, and I love the movies. So yeah, I'm definitely a big movie watcher. But most recently for TV, when I wasn't in school and I was taking the semester off, I got really into One Piece, which is actually it's like an anime show. And when I was over in Pakistan, I was on this mountain, and I made a friend over there who was around my age, like the first time I ever climbed with someone like my age, which was really cool. And he recommended this show to me, and I started watching it with him. So I was like, I kind of got hooked. So I've never watched anime before, and I really liked it. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite actor or actress or both?
Probably Jennifer Lawrence. Just because the Hunger Games came out right when I was like at that pivotal age of like being, I don't know, like kind of discovering who I was. So I think it was like 13 or something like that. Maybe, yeah, I think around then. It was maybe like the first ones came out when I was a little younger. But that was like really when I was like influenced by it, and I just like she was like my biggest role model. I was like, I want to be Katniss Everdeen. So yeah, she's my all time favorite.
Yeah, definitely. Great series. I mean, the books, the movies. I mean,
Yeah.
always the books have more than the movies, but I think they did a really good job with the movies. That the casting was pretty spot on. I mean, all around, it's a great. I didn't see the new one, the or read the
Oh,
Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I have to do that. I have to
you
read it and
should.
watch it.
You definitely should. I read the book a while ago, and I remember loving it, and the movie was just like also amazing. So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend.
Yeah, my fiance saw the movie and she liked it, so definitely have to add it to
You
the
should.
list.
Nice. You definitely should.
All right, well, Lucy, thanks for hopping on the podcast and first mountain climber, mountaineer on the podcast. So I hope somebody's going to learn something. I
Nice.
definitely did. I didn't know much about this sport and what goes into it. So thanks for coming on and sharing some of your experiences.
Of course, it was great to talk with you, and yeah, I hope hopefully you can talk again sometime. It was so much fun.
Yeah, awesome.